Hello people, welcome to Aziz Gani's channel. Today we'll be talking about the Christianity. The topics will be Eastern Christianity in the context of the Orthodox Church and Oriental Church. Before talking about the Eastern Christianity, I'm going to introduce what is the Trinity in the Christianity and what is the water metaphor, which will be introduced in the Christianity. And then we will be moving on the Eastern Orthodoxy. So let's move on. Origins. What is actually Trinity in the Christianity? Before learning about the Christianity, before being familiar about the Christianity, I had thoughts like, who is actually Holy Spirit? Who is actually Father? Who is actually God? Who is actually Jesus? Is that a prophet which is a human, which is mentioned in Islam, or is that similar, something like that? Or who is actually, what is? So after doing a couple of research and learning about the Christianity, I have learned about the Trinity, and it became more clear what is actually Holy Spirit, who is actually Father, and who is the Son, and etc. So let's move on. Trinity. Trinity is what is mentioned in Christianity. There is a one God, and there are different versions of it. For example, it came to earth and as a human being. For example, there is a Father who is actually God. According to what I understood, it stays in the heaven. And the second is the Son, who is actually Jesus. And the third one is in the Holy Spirit, who will be coming before the day of the judgment and does something like the judgments and etc. It's similar with like the Islam, I think, who will be coming like Isa, it's called, who will be comes to the earth and maintains the judgments and etc. So let's move on. It's completely another topic. It will be more understandable if we look at the water metaphor in the Trinity. For example, there is an ice. There's three things, but the shapes are different. But inside the ingredients and what is consistence is the same. For example, there is the ice, and there is a liquid, water, and the vapor, the gas version. The three things are completely their atoms and their ingredients, whatever insides are the same, but in different shapes, in different versions. For example, there is an ice, solid version, which is hard, and there is a liquid version, which is water, which we call it, and it's as a Jesus. And the ice version as a solid is like a Father. And the vapor version is a gas version, which is given as a Holy Spirit. So after understanding what is actually three shapes, but all are in one nature, I mean their consistence only the same. So Trinity in the Christianity is exactly the same thing with the metaphor of water in the three shapes. For example, there is a Father, there is a Son, who is a Jesus, and the Holy Spirit. So, according to my thoughts, until here you have understood what is actually water metaphor and Trinity. It will be completely understandable if you understand what is actually water metaphor. So, Father is not a Holy Spirit, and Son is not a Father. Father is not a Son. The Son is not a Holy Spirit. Holy Spirit is not a Son. So, which means all are the kind of God, but in different shapes. Let's say it will be the exactly same thing with water, if we understand like that. So, this is the Trinity in Christianity. There is a Father, and He sent Jesus, who is a son, to the earth in order to give its book, which is Bible, and teach the canons and rules of the Christianity by Jesus, who is actually Son. And in the day before the day of the judgment, there will be Holy Spirit, who maintains the justice in the end, which is exactly the same thing which is mentioned in the Islam, who is Isa. It's called. It's exactly the same thing with the Islam. The Holy Spirit. It is completely another topic, but anyway. So let's move on now. The Eastern Christianity and the Orthodoxy and Oriental Church. So now, before this Orthodoxy and Oriental Church, there are also different sects. Not only one Orthodoxy. There are other two sects, which is famously known as in the Christianity, there is Catholics, and Protestants, and the last one will be the Orthodox. So in the Orthodox. So we will be talking about the Orthodoxy. In the Orthodoxy, there is also inside there is a two version of it, which is Oriental, which is Oriental Orthodox, and Eastern Orthodoxy. You see, it is, before learning about that, it was too much more complicated to understand it. It is exactly similar with the Islam thing, but we will be talking about the Islam in another video. In the Christianity, there is the three sects famously known, which are the Catholics, Protestants, and Orthodox. And in the Eastern Christianity, there is the two different sects inside the Orthodoxy, which is Oriental and Eastern Orthodoxy. So let's move on these two sects. These are completely different sects. So now we'll be talking about these two. In the Islam also, for example, while writing on my whiteboard, I can talk about the Islam. For example, there is different sects. For example, Shia, Sunni, and etc. I don't remember all the sects now, but it's similar with the Christianity now. The main thing is both religions are monotheistic religions. So let's move on. In the Orthodox schism is the division, which is mentioned in Orthodoxy, Oriental Orthodoxy, and the Eastern Orthodoxy. Oriental, next one Eastern. So what are the main differences in these two sects? Let's divide it. They will argue this with different kind of the division of the Jesus and Son and God, etc. There are for example, I have got a couple of notes here. Monophysitism. Yes, there is a monophysitism which says in Eastern Christianity, it says God and there is a man. That doesn't function the man here. And what about the Oriental? It says it's not a monotheism. It's kind of Nestorianism. Yeah, it's called the Nestorianism in the Jesus thing. There is a God and a man. There is a God and a man. Man is who is actually a son, who is actually Jesus, human, actually a human, not a son of a God. It is actually man, and here is not. It's not like that. It's hideously complicated, to be honest. So it's much more complicated. Sorry for my English actually. So let's move on. Jesus has the nature of the God. Jesus has the nature of a man. Jesus is the God and the man. Jesus is the God and the man. Jesus, God and a man. And these are completely different things actually. Neophytism and there is the Oriental Orthodoxy. In the Oriental Orthodox, people say, let's write it, it will be more clear for you. They will say like, we think you are dividing Jesus natures in a way that makes it sound like there are two persons. That makes it sound like there are two natures. There are two persons. We should highlight here the two persons, so in order to differentiate. So in the Eastern Orthodoxy, there is the small difference we could distinguish here by writing it almost exactly the same text on the left side. So they say we think you are dividing Jesus' natures in a way that makes it sound like he doesn't have the full and unique qualities of each. let's highlight this full unique qualities of each. In a bottom line, both sects says almost the same thing but in different words. They say, the Oriental Church says, we think you are dividing Jesus' nature in a way that makes it sound like there are two persons. I will be drawing another thing. So here it says the Eastern Christianity and the Eastern Orthodox Christianity, it says, we think you are dividing Jesus' nature in a way that makes it sound like he doesn't have the full and unique qualities of each. What does actually that mean? So another thing will be written here, which is so let me draw again. I like to draw, when I draw it will be more understandable rather than just talking about this texts. There is a Christ. There is also Christ in two sects. I'm explaining two sects. They say two persons. There are, and it sounds like Jesus' nature. We think you are dividing Jesus' nature in a way that makes sound like you are two persons. It means like this: God and the Son. That's like that. When it comes to Eastern Orthodoxy, it's also the almost same but in different words. Son here is the thing. There are two natures in two things. Which is in God and Son. Two qualities, two different qualities, and one quality in two physics. Let's call it. In the Eastern Orthodoxy, it says God and Son in one nature, in the one thing. And it's, to be honest, for me, it's much more complicated. But both sounds like almost the same thing, but in different words, as I mentioned before. So let's move on. What are the similarities with the Islam, which is the Oriental Church? In Oriental Church, eating pork is completely prohibited, and it's written in their book too. So, which is similarity with the Islam. It's also prohibited in Islam to eating pork. When it comes to other sects, for example, the Protestants, or let's say Catholics, Catholics, eating pork is not prohibited. But when it comes to Oriental Church, it is completely prohibited. And it's also in the Moses, which is given the Torah. And Torah is also, eating pork is prohibited. In the book of the David, it's also prohibited, and etc. So we have known what is actually the differences between the Oriental Church and the Eastern Church. And let me just tell you a little bit of the timeline of this schism. In this schism, there is a line. And this is the Christ. Jesus is born and died here. And there is the Eastern and Western schism. And here is the Oriental Orthodoxy kind of thing, and you are here. This is the period how you could imagine what are these schisms when it happened, kind of. You could find these years in the Google if you are really interested in. So we should look to these schisms and these sects from the perspective of the political and international point of view. In my point of view, all the sects, not only in the Christianity, in the Islam also, it can be in other religion also, there are different sects, but it's in only the one religion, but different sects. People divided themselves and named themselves according to their, it could be nation, it could be culture. For example, someone didn't like the pork, it doesn't eat the pork, and it prohibits for himself or themselves. For example, they according other people, for example, other nations likes the pork and it doesn't prohibit it for themselves, and it can be considered their lust also, or it can be differentiated from their favor. For example, if I like the pork, I eat the pork. If I don't like the pork, I don't eat the pork. It's prohibited, I will say. If I eat the pork, I don't say it's not prohibited. What is actually is, so what is why it's dividing? If it's the one religion, why it's division? Why there is a division? This question is not only Christianity; it can be given to the Islamic sects, for example, the Shia, Sunnis, and etc., etc. I don't remember all of the sects' names right now, but. So, in the bottom line, I hope today you got at least the small comprehension of what is actually Oriental Church and the Eastern Christianity in the Orthodoxy. And thank you very much for watching this video. So if you liked the video, hit the subscribe button and hit the like button below. So thank you very much for watching. See you in the next videos. Bye bye.